Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We're going to do this here this morning. Can y'all believe it? We are halfway through May. Who did this? How did this even happen? But good morning. I'm Jackie Glass, Mama, Navy vet, certified during the legislator for the House of Delegates, 93rd District. Honored and happy to serve. Grateful to have you here. Good morning, Lauren. Good morning, Jinx757. Y'all are in for a treat, okay, this morning. I heard you loud and clear last time I had a guest on. So, like, y'all know we have a guest today, which is a beautiful thing. Last time you're like, can you do this more? And I'm like, fine. Yes, absolutely. We can do this more. And I've gotten the messages. I know y'all want to talk about this Commonwealth's attorney race in Norfolk. We will. I assure you, I will set time aside just to talk about the race. But today, y'all, good morning. Good morning. Today, I want to sort of talk about something that may sound techie, y'all, but some of y'all are into this sort of thing. It may sound kind of techie, but it's really about trust. It's about truth. It's about power. It's about how the fact that you know and I know that artificial intelligence is shaping everything, how we're hired, how we're policed, how we're taught, who gets access. Am I right? Give me a thumbs up. Good morning in the comments if you know that I'm right here. So, and now there's this push, right? Like, for real, there's this push from the federal level to tell Virginia, like states like us, to kind of shut up and sit down for like 10 years. Swallow that. Yeah, that's right. So there's this proposed language. If you don't know, like, I don't get to pay it. Like, I'll tell you how I got in the know, but there's this proposed language that would block every single state from passing any legislation that regulates AI or any or automated systems for a decade. Yes, yes. I love somebody who gets heavy on how you get hired. Okay, yes, 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 yes. And y'all, that's not coordination. That's like not the kind of coordination that's like a lockout at the state level. And I'm certainly not the only one who sees the danger in that. So I brought in the big guns today. A truth teller, a bridge builder, someone who has been leading the charge on data privacy, algorithmic accountability, tech policy with soul, y'all. My colleague, Delegate Michelle Maldonado. But before I bring her in here, let me just tell y'all something, because there's this thing called quality and knowledge, and sometimes that we are lacking in politicians. You know it, and I know it, right? Like, you know it, I know it. Like, where did this person come from? But Michelle is a former corporate technology attorney turned business development operations professionals, has over like 20 years of experience in leadership. She's like the Oprah of dealing with crises and stress, right? Like contemplative, all the things. And not only that, and since being in the General Assembly, y'all, Michelle has founded she founded and is the chair of the General Assembly's bipartisan and bicameral. So that means both Democrats and Republicans, both senators and delegates. The Technology and Innovation Caucus, steering committee chair for the statewide AI working group, and she sits on the bipartisan national steering committee for AI work group of legislators around the country. We're going to unpack some of this proposal, what it means, and also the fact that y'all understand that we wouldn't know some of these things if we didn't have delegates, people like Michelle, that are staying in the know, and how we definitely want to make sure that we talk about how state legislators like us ring the bell before the house burns down. So please welcome Delegate Michelle Maldonado. I want to say Kurvadian. Can you listen? I know when you say this, right? First off, good morning.
Good morning. Good, bright Thursday morning. What morning is it? Thursday. It's good to
I
be
know she
here.
want to spot me because y'all know it's early. Y'all know it's early. So I see y'all over here on Instagram getting it up. They say good morning, delegate. Good morning, delegate.
Good
Um,
morning.
but you're also Curvadian. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because like I when you said it, I was like, what?
Oh, Cape Verdean.
Bring,
Yes.
bring it.
Yes. Yes. Um, My family comes from these islands off the coast of Senegal, and it's called Cabo Verde, meaning Green Cape. Although a lot of the islands are like dirt. There are some that are really green, but some of it's very dry and volcanic. And it's an archipelago of islands, actually. Our language is Portuguese. I tell people it's kind of like, it's like where like Latin and African culture kind of hit. It are islands that were colonized by the Portuguese. They were uninhabited in the beginning. But what people don't know is that this country was on the slave trade route. It was the stopping point along the slave trade to refuel, to stock up. And over time, the island got populated through a mixture of British and Portuguese and French and African nations, and created this Creole culture. Um, I ask people to imagine it's like having a Caribbean island, like a lot of that, except it's off the coast of Senegal. There's lots of conversation around whether Cape Verdeans, because our culture is very similar to Latino culture. Lots of the same words, same traditions, same norms, same behaviors, similar music in some of the genres. And I usually don't get involved in that conversation because, like Jackie, I'm sure I believe in defining who you are for yourself by yourself. So there you go.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I wanted to say that because I wanted to make sure people understood that about you, because that to me that's a really big deal. I realized also I apologize to people that are just joining me on the Jackie Ford Norfolk page. I looked at the Facebook account and was like, what's happening? I did not add you, so welcome to the party here. So Michelle, here's the thing. It's like um the other day, early this week, you sent out a message, like kind of like sounding the alarm, saying like, "Hey, y'all see what's happening at the federal government? Do y'all see what's happening? Can you talk?" I know I briefly put it in there, tried to process, but when you saw this language, tell us like what was your first thought? How did you come to it? Number one, just expertise. What was your thought, and how did you know that it needed to be brought to light?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was just living my day, minding my business, and then my phone started blowing up, and I was getting calls from reporters and other folks from sort of media groups asking for my thoughts on this 10-year moratorium. And luckily, one of them sent me the link, sent me the bill text, sent me sort of who was carrying it, who was sort of looking to do what I think is a very narrow and harmful approach to handling artificial intelligence for our nation. And so I started to. This was, I think, Tuesday, and I spent the day filling out sort of responses, questions, having interviews. And then I'm also part of the multi-state working group that you mentioned, Jackie. And I put it in the chat, and not everybody had heard about it. I mean, it was so new, because the reason there was a buzz and explosion this week is because they were trying to slip this language in the budget.
Okay, who's they?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so let's start with that. Sorry. So this is an effort that's being brought forward, that was brought forward by House Republicans, and in one of the committees, the House Energy and Commerce Committee, and they were going through budget reconciliation, which means that they were looking like line item, line by line, looking at the budget and trying to reconcile, trying to match up terms and provisions in the budget, and striking through, making proposals for amendments, sort of getting it into shape before they fully sort of had the joint negotiations with the Senate. Now, this language was just kind of thrown in there. There were 3 provisions about this particular part of artificial intelligence. Now, get this, y'all. The first 2 of the 3 provisions spoke specifically about the use of AI for federal. That means, the the executive branch of the United States of America, the president's office, the agencies that are run in this country, like the Department of Education, Department of Energy. That's all part of the ecosystem of the federal level. And then you get down to the third provision, and it's just kind of thrown in there. And it says, oh, and by the way, for a period of 10 years, no state can enforce any AI legislation or regulation, period. Now, y'all need to.
When you said that, I got goosebumps when you said that, because the what we've seen, at least with the current administration, is there this push to get states to take more responsibility, to do, like, you're telling the states that y'all got it, figure it out with y'all budgets, right? Figure it out how y'all fund stuff, but then y'all can't legislate, right? Take our money, but take our money and our power to legislate for 10 years on this. That's crazy, Michelle.
Yeah. Well, listen, two things. You think about anybody who's even played with ChatGPT or Claude AI or Perplexity. These are these things you can go on and ask it a question, right? And it'll give back to you answers. Or if you have an Alexa or you use a Siri, my Alexa just went on. if you have any of those things, that's all part of the AI system, sort of ecosystem. And you imagine that we would never, if this were to go through, we'd never be able to say, hey, you can't collect that private data and use it that way. We could not protect our people against, invasions of data privacy, because we would not be allowed to touch the AI systems or other things. And now there are some narrow exceptions, but not in the ways that are meaningful. So here's another thing. Data centers. People feel it's a passionate topic up in Northern Virginia where I am. But I tell you, this is what you look for to see what possibly could happen in the rest of the state, and whether you like it. You like data centers, don't like data centers, don't really know about them.
Yeah, can you talk about what data centers are? Because that's like not a topic even down here.
Yeah. So let's go back to Alexa and Siri, right? Some of you have those they're called virtual assistants on your phone, and you can say, hey, can you call so-and-so, right? If you take pictures on your phone and you store them in the cloud, right? You store them virtually, so they're not really on your hard desktop or phone. They're in this thing called the cloud. And if you want to access it, you've got to go get it from the cloud and download it, right? So when you download things, all those apps on your phone, those things have to be stored somewhere so that you can access them. And where they're stored is in this thing for many places, in this thing called a data center. So a data center is a huge rectangular building for most. If you drive down your highways and places, you'll see them. They have no windows, and they've got huge generators on their roofs. And so this is where they store the information. They store the data. Some of them are secure because they hold top secret information, like their government data centers, and some of them are for companies, individual companies. Some of them for broader, for people like us, where the stuff on our phones gets stored there. So this is where the intersection happens. If we want to say to data centers like, hey, you have to collect the data in a certain way so that you're not draining energy from our grids, or you're not violating, again, the protections, the people protections. This would not allow us to do it. It is incredible, but I think there's some weaknesses. So I think there's some vulnerabilities in its current form. I'm not so sure it's going to pass.
Okay. So we've got a couple comments. A Sunshine Lady on Instagram, girl, you are in it. She's like, what does the Black Futuristic Society say?
Yeah.
And she said, I use ChatGPT all the time, making a digital footprint with purpose. Lauren Marty 21 says, I don't like, just period. I don't like. But you brought up, and Sunshine Lady also brings up that data centers are exposing us to carbon, and which is environmentally poisonous. So, like, thank y'all for being in the know about just having opinions. Sometimes makes allows us to connect the dots. My question to you would be, though, Michelle, is like, in knowing this, who, like, keeping it real, who benefits from a decade of no state regulation and who loses? Why is that important?
Yeah, if this were a perfect world, and if it were a different focused administration, I think we could trust that there will be some things that would be done. There'd be a balanced approach. But here's what happened, and here's what worries me, is that in all of this conversation, the only focus has been, we have to innovate. We got to be the leaders in the innovation, and we have to beat China. And in all the conversations to grab the power around the development of AI, not once have I heard, and we have to protect our people, and we have to protect their privacy, and we have to protect their data, and we have to make sure we're building it in a way that in the future, this technology is human-centered. I'm not hearing any of that. I'm not hearing any of that. So here's the reality. There are such things as lobbyists, people who get hired by companies to talk to legislators at all levels,
Right.
local, state, federal, if there are issues that their clients care about. They get paid to try and persuade legislators to feel and to align with their position. And there are many lobbyists who are from the venture capitalist community. A venture capitalist, those are the people who give money to startups. They give money to new ideas, right? The venture capitalist group, some folks in industry. Now, I want to pause here for a second. When I say industry, like tech industry and others, but not all players are equal. Jackie and I and others, we've worked on tech legislation. We've had many tech companies work in partnership with us, but there are some that absolutely want no regulation by the states, and venture capitalists are one such group. So they were very successful at killing a lot of these kind of tech bills that protect people and try to balance the people, our duty, our responsibility to protect people, balancing that with our desire to be innovative and competitive. And so they are winning. They are winning at the state level, and they are trying to win at the federal level to block all states. I can't. I'm watching this. I'm watching it to see what happens.
But you're ringing the alarm, and that's the important part. And I think, like, this is not to hype up angst for you all. This is to let you know that there's an opportunity to be a valuable part of this process of helping legislators understand and know. Because sometimes, I'm telling you, there have been stuff, to your point, you like, this is thrown in the budget, they're legislating through the budget. I found out through a constituent that's like, hey, did you know that this was happening? And then, Michelle, what we see here, like, Michelle, what you're doing is that same, like, kind of that, comparable thing, but going up to the federal level, because you've made calls, right? You've called your congressperson. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've called the folks that represent Virginia in the House and the U.S. House and Senate. That's called the Virginia delegation, that group of representatives. So I've called a couple of members of our Virginia delegation. I've spoke to other legislators across the country. We put a coordinated effort and opposition letter together that on Tuesday, that got posted yesterday. Our Technology and Innovation Caucus has a quick letter to the Virginia delegation to say, here's our opposition. Now, what I will say, everybody that I spoke to seems to get it. The problem is we're in the minority. So we have to be really strategic and see if we can get enough votes. So yesterday, by a vote of 29 to 24, the House Energy Commerce Committee voted to approve it. So, but I do want to share with folks what the vulnerabilities are and why there is hope as we sort of stand in this moment to try and figure out how to make sure that these rights, which would be cascading rights, don't get taken away. And there are a couple of things. The first is there's a thing in the Senate called the Byrd Rule. And the bird rule means that it limits the number of things you can pour in the budget that have nothing to do with the budget, right? They're called extraneous provisions. So this provision to put a 10-year moratorium on AI, state AI efforts, doesn't relate to a budget function. It's just kind of thrown in there. So there is conversation that once it gets to the Senate and tries to reconcile everything, that senators will be able to use the Byrd rule to strip it out, to place an amendment, strip it out. So that's one. That's something to hope for. The second thing is that it might run afoul of the Constitution, because the 10th Amendment gives the states certain powers and gives the government certain powers. So in that amendment, it essentially says if the federal government hasn't specifically been granted these powers, then it just defaults to be a state power and the power of the people. So I think there's something there, because for the federal government to tell states that they can't enact law for 10 years, that's
crazy.
Yes, that's cray. That's insane. So I think our legislators have something to work with. Again, we don't have the majority, but the majorities, the difference between majority and minority are pretty tight. So all they need is a courageous few to stand up against this. Now, some people are trying to say, but we have to do this, because if states do it all over the country, we'll never be able to, win the innovation war. It'll stifle innovation. And that narrative is the narrative that people are using to try and make people afraid. We have even people in the state level who are saying, we can't do this. It'll stifle innovation. It'll interfere with interstate commerce. We have to let it be a little bit freer. And here's my response to that, people. And we know this. People say, we've never been here before. It's so new. Not true. We have been in a place like this before with different technology. Several decades ago, this thing called social media came into the world. Yep. We did nothing on parallel tracks as that technology evolved. We did nothing at the state level, nothing at the federal level that was meaningful, that held them accountable. And because we didn't pay attention until later, we are now, decades later in 2025, trying to chase after solutions that address our mental health harms to our children and young adults. We know what it means to not take action with technology. So that is not true. The second thing that is not true is that it would somehow harm business. Virginia was the second state in the nation to pass a Data Privacy Protection Act. And there were similar arguments made back then. Well, this will strangle innovation and competition in business. This is getting into business. We shouldn't say anything. It's going to be devastating.
Yeah. Well, who did that? Who did that? Who helped bring that privacy?
Yeah, so that was our chair of our Joint Commission on Technology and Service, Technology and Science, Delegate Cliff Hayes. He was what's called the patron. He carried the bill and worked with industry to pass that. And he experienced pushback there. And so here's what we'll say. We're several years in the future. And not only is Virginia business thriving, but people are also protected at the same time. So these arguments are ones that that this language is too broad to say that's why we need it. They may want to carve some things out that look at what federal agencies do, but they need to leave the power with the people.
Yeah. Girl, you got the comments blowing up over here. Okay. Okay. So, I know Stacy, I want to say Height says, I hope it doesn't pass, but Michelle's kind of giving us an underline of where we are in the process. Lady Sunshine says, I reside in Maryland, right? Which the Maryland Women's Legislative Board has proposed something regarding the topic. Stacy also says, should we start moving things from the cloud and moving to a safe place, like to an external hard drive? What do you think about that?
So two things. Morning. Two things I would say. First, for Lady Sunshine in Maryland, one of my close colleagues in your state legislature is Senator Katie Hester Fry, and she has done a lot of work in this space. She actually was the lead drafter for the response letter that we put together and published and sent out yesterday that got picked up by Politico and Substack, because it also worked with Gary Marcus, who is an AI expert and researcher and professor. So you have somebody right in your state that you could go to if you want more information. What was the second question? Sorry, no coffee yet. What was that?
Things from the cloud to an external.
Oh, yeah.
Should we start moving things from the cloud to external hard disk?
So here's my thing. Whether this was happening or not, I am a big believer that you should be pulling your things out of the cloud and having a backup copy. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have to use the cloud. I think that's up to you. But before any of this happened, when I first started working in tech and cloud technology started to pop up, I was skeptical at first, and then it took me a while to kind of normalize that and feel like it was natural to do. But I'm always saving to my external hard drive or desktop or phone device. You know, sometimes you have a choice when you download something, it'll say save it in the cloud. Even with a lot of these platforms that we talk on, if you want to record it, it may ask you, do you want to save it in the cloud or do you want to save it to your local device? I'm just a fan. I think it's always safer to have access to your things physically, but I'm not so extreme that I think there's no place for cloud technology. I think there are benefits. But I also want us to remember that the more we use the cloud, the more demands on data centers, the more demands on energy, the more demands on all these things that we also care about because it's all connected.
Listen, that web.
Yes.
I know
the web is real.
That web is real. Like, you're like, okay, my privacy, my data sitting in the cloud connected to the data center that was already pointed out has these environmental impacts. And then the more we use it and the more we get technologically advanced, the more space that we need, more of these. It's a heavy thing. It's a heavy thing. So I'm wondering, and I say this out loud to the certified doers this morning, is that like, this is why it's so important, because most issues have a string. Like it's like that Irish pin and that little string that's on your shirt. When you pull it, it just will keep going. This is so important, and you can unravel. Getting lost in the sauce over all the things that are connected. It's important that you find your thing. What Delegate Maldonado has done, or Lopes Maldonado, my apologies, Delegate Lopes Maldonado has done has found her lane. And like when something's happening, and I'll just say from my standpoint, when something was happening in tech, when something's going on, I'm telling you that the room goes, Michelle, which is a lot of pressure, That's a lot to put on. I want to say that out loud and like hold that's a lot of pressure. And so if you find yourself like in our backyard, even if you're down here in Hampton Roads, if you're in Maryland, wherever you are, if you find yourself super interested in these sorts of things, and you want to look at, what you can do and how lawmakers, because remember our whole lives are legislated, right? We're sitting here fully clothed and not naked on this platform because we could get arrested. we could get in trouble if we, you know what I mean? Our entire lives are legislated. So I think it's an absolute phenomenal opportunity to find your purpose, find your legislator, find your own leadership, and put yourself in the process. Because what I understand is that there's also a moral compass that we have that's guided by what we bring to the table, but also what you help us understand and bring to the table. When we're talking about this, Delia Lopes Maldonado, is what do you think at this point with something so big? And I'm going to recap the fact that in Congress right now, there is language in the budget to completely stop states from doing any legislative work on AI for 10 years. This is what we're talking about, like shutting us, keeping us silent for 10 years, doing anything, y'all. On this kind of issue, what can both legislators, advocates, and even everyday folk do to sort of push back? You talked about what you've done, but if there's someone here who's feeling it in their chest and they're just like, oh my God, what would you recommend as a leader in this sector? What would you recommend they do?
Well, I think doing things like you're doing today is listening, educating yourself about what is happening, what's real, but not getting so lost and so fearful that you kind of feel like it's too big for me to do anything, because that is never the case. We have big problems, but we also have really big opportunities. And so I encourage people to not be shy. If you do not have a relationship with your state legislator, now's the time to make it. Send them a letter, an email, make a phone call, and say, "Hey, you don't have to be an expert on what we're talking about today. You can just say, "Hey, I heard this thing, and I want to make sure I want my voice to be heard, and I want my delegate or my representative or my senator, however it's referred to, where you are." I don't want them to support this, and I want them to oppose it. So one is doing that. Then at the federal level, doing the same thing. I was on the phone yesterday with our federal folks, and I prefaced my call by saying, I'm calling as your constituent and as a representative of the people in Virginia, and I am concerned about this. And here's why. And here are some things where I feel like we might have a shot, even though we're in the minority. So I think you need to do that. I think you should share the information, because let me tell you, I tell people all the time, nothing big and momentous and transformation that has happened in this country, I dare say even the world, has ever come from the top. So it has always been people like us at the bottom and the middle who have forced it up in this crescendo of like, not on our watch. And so remember that you have power. Remember that you can exercise that power. And if things, go sideways, you may feel like it's inconvenient, but you can not use the cloud. You can exercise agency and choice about what you do with your information that you can control. There are some things that we can't, because we won't have the ability. But I am not convinced that this will pass. I'm just not convinced yet. What I think is, even if we do this piece, there will probably be another way, which is why we need to stay diligent and vigilant.
That's fair, because the thing about it, like what sits with me is like, you don't regulate the future by freezing the present.
Yes. Yes.
You don't. You can't. It is wild. But as you said, and I know, like as a lawmaker, I think we both know, sometimes politicians don't do things out of the kindness of their heart. They do it out of pressure. And it is okay to apply that pressure from however much knowledge you have on that thing. I so appreciate you. Okay, you all, she said, said this, someone said, Sunshine's like, I don't think it's going to pass. Stacy says, I'm so thankful for both of you breaking this down. They also mentioned the National Negro Women's Org is really booming next year. So thank you for sharing resources for other doers. That's a huge deal. And all it takes is a tiny spark. I'm clapping for the person that says all it takes is a tiny spark. So being mindful of your time. And I know, look, listen, I told y'all, I'm so grateful. Can y'all all give Delegate Los Maldonados some love, because she got up early this morning and was like, I don't know what she gonna do when she see me.
I'm gonna hug you.
but she's here. As we always say, and I'll give you the final word here, Michelle, is like we always say that all the time that villages are broken. It's not enough to know. We are in an unprecedented time, right? For us, our nation has seen these tensions before. We may not have been cognizant to be present enough to know that it was happening, but it has. And we also have the ability to act. What Delegate Lopes Maldonado just walked us through is why these sorts of things are not policy. They're a problem for people. They're a people problem. Essentially, these are people causing problems. And if we can't legislate systems that affect our schools, that affect our jobs, that affect our safety, that affect our freedom, then what are we even here for? As the middle children of government. Yeah, I said it. Okay. So, certified doers, this is your invitation to ask questions, to raise your voice. We don't give away our power because it's convenient for someone else. We just don't do that. That's not what we do. And I want to express gratitude to Michelle for just like sounding the alarm. And I love somebody put on an alarm clock in the chat. So thank you for sounding the alarm and also showing us that leading with a conscience is still a way. That's still a way forward. That's still a way forward. So your final words, and then make sure you tell people where to follow you. And
so the one thing I didn't say about what we can do is vote, because people have terms and terms come to an end, and then we have elections. So remember that also is where we exercise our power, and abdicating your responsibility to vote, or choosing not to vote because you're like, it doesn't matter. That's how we get to where we are. So just vote as well. Just remember, this is what I say to people all the time. I found this card that I love. It's my calling card. It's a quote by Janelle Monáe, and it says, "I come in peace, but I mean business." And I'm just saying that we are about the business right now. And so now that you are aware, you can't unring that bell. You can't unknow it. And what you get to decide from here is to pay attention differently and to make choices differently as you go about. I am, again, this is helping people to be informed, but not to make people afraid. But we do need to do the work to make sure that we are protecting. I think it was Coretta Scott King who talked about the fact that we have gained a right doesn't mean it's ours forever, that every day we're still making sure that we keep that right. And that's what we're doing here today.
That is fair. Where can people find you, follow you?
Yes. So I am on Facebook at Michelle, the number 4 VA. I'm on, Blue Sky. I'm on LinkedIn at Michelle L. Maldonado. And I'm also on X as Michelle FOR VA instead of the number 4. And of course, we have our regular official accounts, which is just so easy to put in any of our names, including Delegate Glass. Just put our names in, it'll pop up, and you'll have our official information as well.
One thing I love to do, y'all, if you're a music-y person, when I see Michelle Maldonado, because it's Michelle, y'all, and I don't know if y'all remember the Wyclef song back in the day, it goes, Michelle, my belle, Gone to November. That's the song.
Yes.
Michelle, my belle, I know you wrong. I did you wrong.
Yes, that's based off the Beatles song. So I grew up with the Beatles version of that, and then got to be a teenager and got that version. But absolutely, yep, it's Michelle.
It's Michelle, just for you to remember. Oh, somebody put a heart. So I will end on this. I'm just making sure there's no other questions in the chat. Yes, join your local NAACP chapter. Hold on, fun fact. I'm sorry, Michelle, I have to do this to you. You talked about joining your local NAACP chapter, but it's of note, and I think it's less special. It's becoming less special, and I think that's a good thing. That many of our folks that are leading on the tech conversations and AI and data privacy are people of color.
Yes, it's celebration worthy. It's celebration worthy.
You brought that. You were like, who are our leaders? Which I think is such a note, given the efforts and the industry, the way it looks, to have in the Virginia House, that you're able to sort of see the rainbow of people, not rainbow of people, but the consideration of different kinds of people and how these policies affect different kinds of people, as tech hasn't naturally gone that way.
100%. It's very exciting, because when I started, there weren't very many women, and there certainly weren't a lot of Black women, and or people of color, period. And so it's been amazing to watch. And even in the General Assembly, our House caucus is, I think, more than 50% women, and we have the largest sort of diversity of Black and Latino and Indian and Sikh and, just Middle Eastern and Muslim and Christian and Jewish. I mean, it is amazing. It is amazing. And
Yeah.
remember though, I mean, Jackie has thrown this word around, expert and all these things, leader. Let me just tell you, don't let any of that intimidate you, because we all start somewhere. And even though people use those labels with me, I don't use them with myself, because I feel like unless you know everything, I just don't understand how you are the expert. But if you don't have space to be open, that you need to always learn more, there's always more to learn. That keeps you in a place of always learning, having a beginner's mind. So I say take some joy in the fact that maybe you don't know a lot about this, and get excited about what else you could learn.
Yeah. Can I say, in these conversations, I remember when we first started talking, and I'm like, Michelle, I do not know a lot about tech, but I know about educating people. And I know this is the thing. I know that I just want to educate people on this stuff. So if you can help me do this, I will be the best partner I could be on educating people.
Nice.
I think I want to leave on this is I actually agree with what she's saying. I don't like when people are like, you're the expert, but she's super experienced. And that is what
I know that.
Yes. At the table, super experienced. Can you tell people places that you've been that intersect with this industry, places that you work in, opportunities that you had, just to leave? Let's just, just to sort of, like, the girl's coming from a real place. The lady knows stuff.
So I started out my career as a tech lawyer. I worked inside two law firms, but then, I was like, I really want to just do tech full time. Sometimes when you're a law firm, you kind of have to do a couple of different things, assignments they give you. So I was fortunate enough to go inside of a company called America Online, which later became known as AOL to everybody else. And fun fact, we were complaining one day about how hard it was to do the work there. And as some of our team was in from France, and he was always like, you Americans complain so much. Imagine how hard it is for me to sell America Online in French, anything named America, like in France. And shortly after that, America Online became AOL. So it made it easier to sell in other countries. But so I started there first as an in-house lawyer, and then I moved to the business side. And where I got cut my teeth was on privacy and back-end data platform technology. So all the stuff behind the scenes that makes what you see on the screen, all those things to work. And that's where the AI was. That's where the programming and coding was. And then the third thing was sort of what we called e-commerce, the things we sell online, because AOL had a whole bunch of shopping opportunities. And so those were the three areas that I focused on as a lawyer, and then as a business person doing tech deals with other companies and organizations. And then kind of just went forward from there. And I've always loved tech. I thought maybe I'd be an engineer. And then my parents sent me to engineering camp, and it did 5 hours of math a day. And I said, nope, not for me. But they just didn't teach it well back then. Now it's amazing the way they teach math and other things. So if I were to go back in time and have an experience of what kids have today, I probably would have been an engineer. But that's how it started.
I want to shout out Code and Chill. I believe that's happening this weekend. Code and Chill. I'm trying to make sure that I get it right. I want to say at Assembly. I will drop that in my story. So if you guys just super dope, John Doe. Yes, I was about to get John Doe and the folks over there and the collaborations that are doing the Code and Chill, just to like bring anyone interested in. To your point, Michelle, is that our access to information and to learn things in different sorts of ways is there, which is why, Stacey, I love that you gave a little heart to Delegate Little Small Manalo and saying that a beginner's mind is what moves, is what innovates, is what we need. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Love you. Unfounded Mag says, thank you, Queens. You're very, very welcome. Until next time, I will see you guys next Thursday. I'm not in the streets this week, so I'm out of town this weekend, so I won't catch you at any events or in the streets this weekend, but I'll see you next week. We'll be in the streets doing stuff and things. Wow, wow, wow. I just have to say this. Wow, this person said, wow, 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 Rep Maldonado. I'm studying for the LSAT right now, and you are inspiring me. Come on.
All right, you got this.
Beth, you heard her. She said, you got this. Come on. You got this. All right. I'm for real. We're shutting up this time. You all make it a great day. All right. So glad that you doers are here because doers get more done. Don't sue me, Home Depot. Take care, y'all.